and happy Friday. So we're happy Friday, everyone. We're doing closing show live today on a Friday, and the reason why is because we really wanted Kristen on the show. We have Kristen Twining today, SVP at Illusive Networks, and we really wanted to be here. And Friday was a day that we could do, so we're doing closing show live today on a Friday. So welcome. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. If you've got the ping and you don't know what the closing show live is, let me remind you, this is a weekly live show and we feature the people of Proposify, sales stars in the trenches, and revenue leaders like Kristen. So I'm Nadia Milani, VP of Marketing at Proposify. Every week, I discuss the challenges we're facing and the no BS lessons we've learned so you can crush your close rates. So the closing show live is brought to you by Proposify. So stop proposal chaos for good, for really, like stop proposal chaos for good. Get more control and visibility into the close with Proposify. Go to proposify.com to start your free trial today. Also today, if you've seen the live and you're joining us, you can actually win 3 Proposify hoodies. There's one of 3 Proposify hoodies. They're super great quality cotton. They're amazing. And you can win one. How? Just simply by commenting in the chat today. Ask your questions. Ask Kristen your questions about how to scale your career. So we have Kristen Twining here, SVP of Sales at Illusive. She's scaled her career. So she started as a BDR in the trenches and moved her way up to heading up sales at a number of different organizations. So excited to have you here, Kristen. We're going to talk a lot about how to scale from SDR to CRO like a pro. Welcome to the show, Kristen.
Gosh, thanks so much. That's awesome. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate you making some changes to accommodate my schedule. So just really, really thrilled to be here. And thanks again.
So awesome. So we're going to get right to it. So we're going to start with the question that I love. So it's really about you. Take us through how you went from an SDR to SVP, because I'm sure if any BDRs or SDRs are listening, or a manager, they're probably curious, how did you make that happen? Take us through your journey.
So really untraditionally. So like, I think everyone's going to expect me to tell the story of I started as an SDR, went into an AE, and it was this sort of like continuous up a mountain, up a staircase, up a ladder, whatever you want to say. And actually it wasn't. It was a lot of lateral and some back and some forward and some up and some down. And so it's really interesting. So actually, I started my career right out of college. I started as an enterprise account executive for a large technology company, which you may know, called HP. And I was a field
Where are those guys?
yeah. I was a field rep. And so funny, right? Like out of college, going right into the field with big customers that I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know, like, there were so many things I had to learn. So I jumped in, was really blessed with some great early success, did a lot of individual contributor sales roles at HP, went from enterprise accounts to commercial accounts to specialist roles and everything in between. And timing is escaping me a little bit, but let's just say maybe about a couple years into HP, I went through a pretty difficult life moment. I unfortunately lost my mother and sort of had to figure out, am I in the right spot I want to be? I sort of had some introspecting to do, right? I'm sure some of us can certainly resonate with, we wake up and we say, oh my gosh, is this really what I want to do? So I did that and I realized that, you know what, I don't know. And so I got this really interesting opportunity to go work in fashion. But it was software sales for fashion. So I was like, cool, couple technology with fashion sounds like a really great fit for me. But interestingly enough, that's where I had to go back. So I had a lot of experience in being a field rep, but for this particular role, I had to take a step back and pound the phones. So I had an inside job. It was really kind of business development, but I also had the opportunity to help with a little bit of the close process. But I had to sort of cut my teeth, which was really cool because I didn't really have to do that initially, right? And so it was really interesting it's almost like that concept of when you go and get your master's degree, right? They say that it's really good to get your master's degree after you've had some experience. it was sort of that, right? Like I sort of went and did my BDR piece after I had experience, and I thought it brought a really interesting perspective because I saw the other side of the cycle, and now I had to go make sure I was building that muscle to go do some demand generation and prospecting. So very unique way, and like I said, untraditional, but I think really critical in my career.
So good. You mentioned something that it wasn't linear, and I think that sometimes, like,
Sorry, my watch was just saying they didn't understand. Sorry about that.
oh, yeah, no worries. Yeah. Siri talks to me all the time. I'm like, "Stop, Siri." It's like, "Not right now." And my phone too. Like, sometimes my Siri will go on my phone or my computer. So I just have both Siris going off at the same time, so I
That's
totally get
great.
it. But back to, like, the career path, like, I've heard, it being very linear for sales. So and I've seen it, and I've experienced linear career paths, but I've also taken a step back, and then that's actually helped me catapult me, in quick growth. Like, I went from a manager to a VP in like less than 2 years because I took a step back to manager, did some like, really deep work in the manager function, getting in the weeds, and that really helped me scale my career. So
Mhm.
take me a little bit about what's like the typical career path for sales, like, and what have you seen? And then maybe if you could take it back to your career and how it's been non-traditional for you. So you kind of mentioned a little bit about the SDR, you were kind of in the field, then you went back to BDR, but then how did it kind of maybe get into the management and the SVP role that you're currently in?
Yeah, sure. So to answer your first question, I mean, traditionally, what I see, and I've had the pleasure of not only seeing this, but also building career paths for organizations. So traditionally, what we see is, someone comes into an organization as an entry level SDR, right? They want to cut their teeth in whether it's the industry or in sales, and the best way to do it is through, a sales development or business development role, whichever the organization terms it as, because it's an opportunity to just, in my opinion, it's one of the most important roles in the company. And it's an opportunity to just kind of get the door like closed in your face and to learn some really, really hard lessons really, really early on and to understand um, how hard you need to work to get that just even yes, or to get that meeting, and to
Mm.
feel that reward, and to feel that the harder I work and the more I learn from some of the mistakes I make, the more money I can make, and the more I can, make an impact to myself and the organization. So traditionally, people come in that way. And then, I see different paths, right? I think the most common path is you come in as an SDR and you want to go be an account executive. And so you may be in an organization where you go to a commercial role or a small medium business role, but traditionally it's the SDR to AE. But I think also non-traditionally, sometimes you see SDR to I want to be a team lead, or I want to go into leadership. So I go from an SDR to a manager. And then I go from a manager to an AE. And then sometimes you see that SDRs want to go into different roles, like maybe a marketing role or a sales operations role. And so I think the beauty of an SDR is there's so much to be said for someone cutting their teeth in some sort of sales, where you can take that knowledge across really anything that you want to go do across any of those paths that I just mentioned. So that's sort of the traditional route that I see from SDR to AE. And if you go down that route, it's SDR to AE, and then maybe you start, like I said, in commercial and scale across, scale up through many different segments to, global account manager, et cetera. And I think some people want to stay in that because they love the thrill of carrying a bag and selling, which is awesome. And then some people like myself see that there's a sense of leadership to what you do on the sales side that you find a real passion in, that you want to go take and live in a different way. So for me, sort of segueing now into your second question, that's sort of what happened, right? So was really successful in that business development role that we spoke about. Actually ended up getting a call very short into that role from HP to say, hey, we want to offer you leading a global account team. And it was sort of my dream job at the time, so I couldn't say no. And I realized how much I really did love technology. Just because I like shoes and bags and clothes, fashion was just not the right world for me. And so went back into technology, and really that's where my career just really kind of rocket launched. And what I found was exactly what I just said, is that leading a global account team, I didn't have people that were reporting directly into me. they were all a dotted line. And what I realized is I was really good at delivering a strategy and a vision for where we needed to take that client. And I was really, it was really fun to watch the team just center around that and to all work in their own sort of worlds to get that done as part of the bigger strategy. And so leading that as the quarterback for me, I felt like, gosh, I have a real passion here. I have a passion for people, and there were people on my team who were younger in their career that I had a passion for helping. And so all of that together with just my love for sales and constantly being in front of the customer felt like this package for I want to be a leader. But I also want to stay close to the sales teams and the sales process, because I don't think that you can be a leader up here without having that foundation and that continuous connection to your customer.
So agree with that. Um, so I'm curious what anyone joining us today, what have you seen and what any questions that you have about moving into those different roles, but also your perspectives on what you've seen, how is it linear? Have you transitioned into different role differently? Um, Drop it in the comments, and just reminding everyone you can win one of 3 Proposify hoodies, amazing quality hoodies, by just commenting and asking some questions live in the chat. Okay, so I heard, because I don't know, because I haven't been I haven't been in AE, but I have heard that it's really hard to go from AE to sales manager. Thoughts on that? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it can be. I think, and even when I'm interviewing for candidates that want to go from an AE to maybe being a first time leader, for example, I think, some of the questions that I want to ask are really around what's your true passion, right? And sometimes I get the answer of, I like to help people. Well, that's great, right? We all do. And, my helping people was more, I like to sort of see them grow and develop their career, right? And I think there's so much more to leadership. And I think too that sometimes just because you were really good as an AE doesn't necessarily translate into the fact that you're going to love or your skill sets will be matched with being a leader. And I
Mhm.
think the other thing too is you've got to balance, because once you become in a leadership role, it becomes a lot more operational. Now, I would argue that being in, being a sales is, and I think this is something we may have talked about before, but like one of my aha moments that I wish I could have like told myself back then is like sales is data driven, right? There's so much data and you've got to be operationally excellent to be successful. And I think once you get into leadership, that becomes so much more evident, right? And so you're not only managing your sales process and how you're effective in guiding your buyer to decisions and helping your customers achieve the outcomes that they're coming to you, you're now having to instill this across your team in a repeatable motion. And you've got to leverage data to make decisions. And so you've got to ask yourself, do you like doing that stuff, right? Because it's not about you don't have the skill sets to do it, because candidly, I didn't. I mean, I'm not going to lie to everyone here on the phone. I remember one of my first bosses when I went into leadership, she's like, girl, we have to work on your operational excellence, because it was something that I was never taught, right? And so I think that, not only do you have to know that that's really important to the business, you also have to say to yourself, like, do I like doing this, right? And do I like being one who sets a strategy? But to set a strategy and a vision, you've got to have data, right? You've got to have trends. You've got to understand where you want to take the business based on where it's been before. And a lot of that, I think, kind of gets missed when you think about going from an individual contributor role to a leadership role. So I think it's just something to think through. And if you don't have those skills, do everything you can to start to gain those skills, because that will be really valuable for you as you scale into or as you interview for leadership roles.
Yeah, I love that. So operational excellence. I think that's really something that is universal for all management positions. So whether you're in sales or you're a marketer or you're in BI, as soon as you get into the management role, it really does become more strategic. I know a few AEs actually many AEs who have started as an AE, crushed it, went into a management role, hated it, went back to the AE role and continued to crush it. So I can absolutely see where it's not everyone's cup of tea. And if
Yeah.
you're really great at sales and that's what drives you, you love the relationships with the customer, you love being on just grinding it every day and the consistency around the AE role, then I think I can see why, moving into management role doesn't always work for everyone. But curious, like what makes a great AE then? So we've talked a little bit about operational excellence, and it matters more as a manager. But in your opinion, like what really makes an AE an excellent account executive?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say that as an AE, if you can get some operational excellence behind you, you're in a really great spot because having that upper hand of really understanding, the process and some of the data trends around your customer and what you're trying to achieve is really great. But I think all of that aside, right? I think there's a couple of things. I mean, there's a lot of attributes that I'll say that everyone's going to know, right? Most importantly, when I look for a great AE, I'm looking for someone who's got that grit, right? I want to know that you're hungry. I think one of the things that, I think some people, as you grow your career, you become in this sort of account management role and it becomes more of like this farmer mentality of I've got to manage my customer and I've got to maybe upsell and expand across the organization. But I think sometimes you lose a little bit of that muscle that I was referring to earlier around prospecting and driving that new demand and picking up the phone. And I think that what makes a great AE is someone who understands that no matter how long you've been doing this, you've got to be continuing to prospect and you can't just say, I've got an SDR who's going to do that for me.
Mm,
And I think that comes with the grit, that comes with the hunger, that comes with being aggressive, being persistent, and you can't lose that, right? And I think that you've always got to be on top of that because even if you're in a role as an AE where you're managing large accounts and you've got let's say 3 accounts that are current customers of your organization, you still have to be prospecting, right? Because chances are they're really big accounts and there's a lot of different people and complexities that you've got to be in front of everybody trying to sell different pieces of your portfolio, and really understand the intricacies of the business. And there's so much more to that than just managing an account, right? You've got to have that prospecting muscle. So I'd say that's one of the fundamental things. And I actually think that, AEs who've been doing this from a long time can sometimes learn a little bit from SDRs who do this every day, because I really think that those two roles have to work together, but you still can't lose that muscle no matter how experienced you are.
so good. Love that advice. And we have somebody who agrees, hunger and grit equals results. I would love to dissect a little bit of the BDR to AE role as well. So typically the path is like 1 to 2 years SDR. Sometimes depending on the company, sometimes there's SDR Cat or BDR academies, SDR academies, and then they move into they advance from there. But how long should it take? Like if you're an SDR, you've been doing the role for a year and a half, you really want to become an account executive. You think you have the grit, you are data, you're data hungry, and you want to take the leap. Like, what does it take typically? Like, is it luck? Is it consistently driving the calls and being successful as a BDR role? What does it take to make that jump?
Yeah. I think one, you have to be really clear about what you want, right? So I always say when people ask me about career advice, I really try to say, well, what are you looking for, right? Sit down and say to yourself, what are you really good at? What are you not good at? And for the things that you're not good at, what do you want to be better at? And what don't you really want to be better at because you don't like it, right? I think you've got to think about it in that way. So it's less about the role you want, and it's more about you. And then you sort of figure out the role that fits into you, right? I think it's really important to look at it from that lens because chances are sometimes there may be a role that you want as you grow your career that doesn't even exist, right? And I've been in that situation where I've actually had an opportunity to create what I think could be for what I thought the business needed, plus what I was looking to do. But I think from a BDR to AE, look, I think you can be a really great BDR, but going into the AE role is really, really hard because as a BDR, you're spending most of your time on the beginning of the sales cycle, right? On the prospecting, which is by the way, as I mentioned before, so incredibly important. And I think it's foundational to not only the beginning of the prospecting cycle, but also like even post sale, right? Because you're starting to uncover situations that identify themselves as pains, which ultimately can be used by your professional services and customer success organizations when you close a deal. So it's so critical, that beginning of the cycle. But I think as a BDR, you want to get yourself more entrenched with your AEs, right? Take some time out of your week and really shadow, right? Just say like, I want to learn more about the progression, right? You know, for me, we do MedPick reviews with the team. Like, BDRs, join those, right? Understand what the account executives are looking for to progress deals, and the methodology and the approach and the questions that need to be asked and how you need to guide your buyer, right? Really entrench yourself in that, because that's going to be one of the hardest things when you take that AE role. Is you now have to get out of just that beginning of the sales cycle. You now have to understand the progression and the close, right? And I think the progression is most important. The close, we'll work through the close with you, right? That's the fun part. It's really that progression, that middle of the sales cycle, where I see AEs having the most difficult time, because it's a little bit of a shock and like, oh, I didn't realize it was this hard, right? I meant, by the way, BDRs to AEs, right? Having the most difficult time. So I think as much as you can do to gain awareness and educate yourself and spend time with people and shadowing what that piece of the cycle looks like, I think the better off you are.
Love it. I, I admire your career. Your sales career is like phenomenal. Like you've done it all. You've had pretty much every single role in sales that there possibly is. So for anyone that's listening, if you have any specific questions for Kristen, feel free to put it into the comment section. But just, I'm also curious about the end. So you've done all the roles, and then you've become the director, and now and VP and SVP currently. What does it take to become the head of sales for an organization? Like for the managers and the directors that are currently listening, like what's that next level look like, and how hard is it to get to the next level?
Yeah, no sleep.
Yeah, throw kids in there too.
Yeah, that's also a combination of my littles, right? Yeah,
Right.
no, I think, gosh, that's such a hard question. Again, I think again it goes back to, you've got to know what you want, and I think you've always got to have a plan, right? And I stress upon, it's funny. My husband said to me the other day, he's like, do you have like plans, like career plans? And I was like, well, yeah, you know that. He's like, no, I know you do, but is it written somewhere? And I was like, yeah, like I actually sit and think about this stuff a lot. And he's like, oh, okay. And I think it's so important, because you have to have something concrete. You have to know what you're working towards. And I think once you know what you're working towards and where it aligns with everything I said before around your passions and what you like to do and what you don't like to do, you start to almost be able to control your destiny, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's why it's so important to know what you don't want to do, because like you've got to know what you want to say no to and what you want to go after. And then I think also you've got to surround yourself with the right people, right? You've got to surround yourself with people that are good in your eyes, that are successful, so that you can learn from them. You've got to be really vulnerable and ask for help and mentorship and guidance. I will say that my network of mentors, I'm so thankful. Like, there are people that I have been my mentor since day one, and there are people that I met, months ago. There are people that I've known for only a couple of years. And what's really cool is, most recently, when I just took on this SVP role, I remember there were some things I had to work through in a really short amount of time. And I am so thankful for the people in my network, because I picked up the phone and called 3 people immediately and just said, I need your help. And they all just took like 30, sometimes 40, almost an hour of their day to just sit with me and help me think through how I was thinking. And so you've got to build a network of people that you can do that with, because they're really instrumental into helping you make some of these decisions. And then go dabble a little bit. Like for me, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the organization called Pavilion. It's a really large sales community. I'm a part of that. I had a hunch that sort of the SVP CRO route was the route for me. And so I went and took a course.
Mhm.
And it was an intensive course, and I learned all about it, and I got to understand what is the expectation of this role and what does it look like. And so I could have very easily walked out of that and been like, nope, this is not for me, right? But I learned that, okay, yeah, this is the right, I'm on the right path. So you've got to understand where you want to go. You've got to have the right people around you to help you get there, and then you've got to keep validating that that in fact is the path that you want to be on.
Absolutely love it. The network part is so critical. I couldn't agree more. Like there are days where you need to call that friend, that work friend, but i.e. the mentor on how do I work through this challenge, validating thinking. I couldn't agree more with that. I'm just curious, like, what's a good number of people in a network? And I don't like no one really like talks about that, but like how many great mentors like should a person have? Like especially so I have about like 5 or 6 that I feel like I can go to for answers and questions at any time. Like, is that a good number? Or is that too much? What's your opinion on that?
I think there's a difference between a coach and a mentor, right? So I think you can have as many people that you feel that you can call for any certain circumstance. Like it's almost like I have like this Rolodex of people that if I'm in this situation, I'm going to call this person. If I'm in this situation, I'm going to call this person. And but I think from like a true mentor perspective, I mean, for me, I've probably got maybe 5 people like you, and that I know that that I keep in touch with frequently, right? Which means I don't just call when I need a little bit of help. It's we grab dinner when we're in the same city, or we catch up at least on a quarterly basis, or we just ping each other on LinkedIn to see how things are going, right? So you've got to you want to really be like sort of that circle of mentors, but then you've got this bigger circle of people that you've worked with that you can say, hey, I'm in this situation, I know you've done this before, what is your perspective on this, can you help me here, right? So it's about that sort of close knit circle, and then it's that bigger network that you always have the opportunity to tap into. And then I think most importantly that you make yourself available to be tapped into from others as well. It's definitely a give and a get, right? You For that bigger circle, you've got to be in a position where, like, if I come to you, Nadia, which I think I did, right, and asked you for some perspective on something marketing related, I want to be here to help you if you have a question sales related, right? So you've got to have that ability to give and get with each other to be successful.
Amazing. So a couple questions, but this one is just really about looking at your career. What is like one thing you wish you would have done differently? And what's the learning there, you think? I know I didn't add this to like the pre-question, sorry.
No, no, that's okay. I think honestly, I don't know if I would have done a lot differently, because I think that there's so much to be said from the things that I may say I want to do differently, but I'm really glad I did them because it got me to where I was, because I think failure is such a big part of progression. I would say that the one thing that really steps out in my mind, though, is it took me a long time to realize that vulnerability and asking for help is okay. And I still
Mhm.
have to remind myself of it, right? I've had so many experiences, like kind of earlier on in my career, where as I was learning and scaling, and I had this really amazing opportunity to grow my career so quickly, I always felt a little bit of imposter syndrome to say, like, I've never done this before, and I'm so young and I'm so new. Am I good at this? Like, do they not see what I see, right? And you sort of go through that in your head. And there have been times where I would think that, and I would get in my own way, and I wouldn't raise my hand for help because I thought that if I did, they'd be like, "Oh, yep, confirmed. She's not the person for this job," right? And what I learned over the course of time is it's exactly the opposite, right? And that the more you ask for help and you showcase, like, hey, look, as a leader now, right, when I hire people that I know are going to scale, I know they're not 100% when they get in. That's actually why I'm hiring them. And so I know they're going to need some help. But and now I know that people saw that in me, of course she's going to need some help. But my downfall was there were moments where I didn't ask for help and I thought I could do it all, and that is where I fell flat on my face and just got stompled on. So I would say that that's one thing I would tell myself. I don't know. Am I the only one in the show right now, or did we lose Nadia? I see live on my screen.
Hey, I'll hop in here. Yeah, I think Nadia has dropped off, but we are at the end of the stream anyway. So yeah, if I don't know the plan for how this is supposed to end, but I guess, Kristen, do you have any like closing thoughts, or do you have anything that you'd want to promote or push in these final moments? Where can people contact you if they want to follow up with more questions or anything like that?
Yeah, no, thanks so much. Well, I hope everyone found this valuable today. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. If you want to contact me, Kristen Twining, I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out. I'd love to connect. And if there's anything that I can ever do to help in any way, a big part of my passion is mentoring others to be successful and just give guidance and advice. So certainly here to help. But I hope everyone has an awesome weekend.
Thanks so much, Kristen, for joining us. I really appreciate it. I think this was an awesome episode. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, reach out to Kristen, and we'll leave it there.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.